Well, we're back yet again, and this time we're talking about N.E.R.D's infamous fourth album, Nothing. Now, the reason I refer to this album as infamous is because it's not well liked by N.E.R.D fans, and it's heavily disliked by the band themselves. It was revealed in an interview that took place 7 years after this album's release that the group felt as if they didn't have enough creative freedom on this album, and the record label wanted them to create club bangers like Everyone Knows and She Wants to Move, but that wasn't the album the band was aiming to create.
The record company just didn't get that, so they were like, we need you guys to do some up-tempo records. We need you guys to do something that we can play in the club. And so we acquiesced, and I hate Hot and Fun. I hate it.
I mean, the whole project was a dark time for us, though.
Yeah.
We were on a label where they were comparing us to other groups within the same umbrella. We were having some internal issues. So it was a dark, depressing, creative time.
I mean, look at the title. Nothing.
It's clear from a fair amount of tracks on the record that N.E.R.D was going for a very old-school jazz and blues influenced sound on this record that likened back to the 60s and 70s, and strayed far away from the sound of their previous albums. There's a lot of tracks that employ more brass instruments, soul-inspired keys, and a general 60s vibe, but that's not what the record label wanted, so they were basically forced to make songs that were less experimental and more radio and club-friendly, which resulted in the album being extremely lopsided and musically all over the place. Which is a shame, because there are some really good songs on the album where you can clearly see what the group was going for, but there are also a fair amount of songs that just feel forced and have no passion or drive behind them. Anyway, enough talk about the album. Let's talk about the album. Okay, I probably could have thought of a better segue than that. So we start off this album with one of the worst songs the band has ever made. Now, Party People isn't horrible or anything. The production is obviously the highlight since it's a Neptunes record, and the hook is generally pretty catchy, but you can just tell they had no interest in making a song like this, so it feels really phoned in. These are some of the worst lyrics the band has ever written, and the T.I. feature is nothing to write home about. It's just a really lackluster way to open an album. Pharrell himself has stated that he hates this song, and it's clear to see why. The song wasn't made out of genuine creative drive, it was made as an obligation to their label. Not a great start.
Just close your eyes, let me hypnotize you.
This is another one of my least favorite N.E.R.D songs, but again, it's not horrible. It takes a lot for a song to be downright bad, and I wouldn't call this, or even Party People, necessarily bad, but it's just disappointing, because I know the band is capable of making way better music than this. Anyway, this song barely even feels like an N.E.R.D song, to be honest, and out of all the sex songs they've made, this is by far the worst, with the best obviously being the way she dances. The hook is decent, and Pharrell's falsetto vocals aren't bad, but this track just lacks the creativity and energy that makes this band music shine.
I'm your doctor, this is your therapy. Help me, 'cause I am feeling fumes.
After a pretty disappointing beginning, we get the first good song on the album. This really should have been the album opener because it would have worked perfectly. This song is awesome, and it's an example of the jazz influence that the band was going for on this album. This song sounds like it came straight from the 70s and has some of the best instrumentation on the album. Pharrell's vocals are amazing on this track, and the saxophone during the hook is explosive. Help Me is a sick song, especially live.
I want it. I'm not even gonna lie.
Here we have yet another great song. Victory is an example of a motivational and positive N.E.R.D song, along with previous tracks like Things Are Getting Better and Happy. The song just beams with joy, and the Beatles influence present on the track is super prevalent, and adds a lot to the vibe. This song probably has the best vocals on the album, and is one of the best hooks as well. It's definitely a bit cheesy, but that's one of the things that makes N.E.R.D N.E.R.D, and that bridge is outstanding. More tracks like this, please. Perfect Defect's a pretty good song. It isn't quite as good as the previous two, but it's nowhere near as disappointing as the first two tracks. It's a pretty simple and fun love song with a nice hook and great verse from Shay. The saxophone sounds great in the pre-chorus, and the chord progression is really pretty. Not at all one of their best songs, but it's still a pretty good one that I enjoy well enough.
Oh, you're so perfect. Oh, don't ignore me, girl.
This is another one of those N.E.R.D. songs that's a two-parter, and it's honestly one of the best ones. The first half of the song, I've Seen the Light, has some great storytelling in the lyrics and an earworm of a hook. And once again, some great saxophone work from Chad. But the second half of the song, Inside the Clouds, is one of the most beautiful songs the band has ever written in terms of both lyrics and chords. It's a song about rain, which is a really simple topic, but the way it's described is so endearing and frankly beautiful. The song feels very Roy Ayers inspired in its sound, and it's the best example of the jazz influence the album has. We even get a really cool part where Pharrell and Chad have some sort of duet where they switch back and forth. Hearing Chad sing on an N.E.R.D. song is very rare, but it's always a welcome addition. And apparently this is Pharrell's favorite track on the album, and it's clear to see why. It's beautiful. I love this one.
I think my favorite is really short. I don't know how long it is. What is it, 1:30 or something? It's called The Inside of Clouds. That's my most proud thing that I've participated in.
God Bless Us All is a pretty decent track. It gets a tad repetitive sometimes in terms of the lyrics, but the instrumental is clearly the driving force of the record, with Chad's beautiful sax and Pharrell's piano in the chorus. This is another motivational song, and does a serviceable job at being just that. Far from my favorite, but I always enjoy it when it comes on.
First they say the angels sing, and then the Big Bang.
Life as a Fish is definitely the best track on the album. It's about pollution and its effects on sea life, and that message is portrayed beautifully. It's honestly pretty haunting at times. We get some of Pharrell's best vocals on the entire album, and a really emotional and powerful chorus. We also get some great lyrics this time around that are honestly some of the most poetic lyrics the band has written. Songs like this are what save this album from being called bad. This song is so good that it makes you completely forget the more lackluster tracks on the album like Party People. Welp, Life as a Fish was the last great song on the record, as these last two tracks are nothing to write home about, pun very much intended. Nothing on You feels like the band trying to write a song in the style of their first album In Search Of, but it comes across as super forced and lacks the energy and creativity that made that album so great in the first place. This song is such a nothing burger, pun intended, and it's even worse than bad. It's mid. There's nothing, pun intended, about the song that's special. It's not horrible, it's a competent song, but there's not much there to really like either.
Okay, we wrote this for a purpose to motivate you at this time.
I think this is a good time to look back at how N.E.R.D. ended their previous three albums. Remember how they ended In Search Of with the track Stay Together, and Fly or Die with Find My Way, and Seeing Sounds with Laugh About It? N.E.R.D. was always really good at ending their albums with a bang and leaving them on a good note. But that simply cannot be said for this song. The band hates this song, and I wouldn't necessarily say that I hate it, but I definitely wouldn't say I like it. This feels like Nothing on You Part 2, but somehow even less noteworthy. The whole song feels like it's on autopilot. Like if someone asked an AI to write an N.E.R.D. song, this would be what it spat out. It has some of the elements of past N.E.R.D. songs, but none of what made them good. Such a lackluster way to end the album, man.
She's dancing for a reason, not just cause I'm on a high, homeboy is.
It really is a shame this is the way that Nothing turned out, because there was so much potential for this to be one of their best albums. There are some really good songs in this record, like I've Seen the Light, Victory, and especially Life as a Fish, that show the band truly had a creative vision. But all the micromanaging from the label stifled what could have been an amazing album. There are 5 deluxe tracks, and 2 of them are actually pretty good, those being It's in the Air and Sacred Temple, but the others are pretty meh. Side note, why are there 5 deluxe tracks? Like, the actual album itself is only 10 tracks long. It's overall the shortest N.E.R.D. album, so I feel like they could have included some of those deluxe tracks to beef up the runtime. I don't know. Oh yeah, another side note, I forgot to mention that N.E.R.D. actually went on tour with Gorillaz to promote this album, which is honestly really cool. But unfortunately, I was 4 years old, so I couldn't see my 2 favorite bands on tour together. N.E.R.D. would go on a pretty lengthy hiatus after this record, but luckily the album they'd come back with would end up being leaps and bounds better than this one. But we'll get to that album when we get to it. Anyway, that's enough out of me. Goodbye.